I'm Morgan Reynolds, 32, and I've been in love with baking since I could reach the kitchen counter. Opening my own bakery was always the dream that kept me going through life's toughest moments. When I finally got the keys to my own shop, inviting my family seemed like the natural next step. I just never imagined that watching my mother walk through that door would make me question everything I'd worked for. Before I tell you how my dream crumbled faster than my signature shortbread, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and subscribe if you love family drama with a side of pastry. The smell of vanilla and cinnamon always takes me back to my grandmother's kitchen. Grammy Rose wasn't just an amazing baker, she was my sanctuary when Mom's perfectionism became too much. Every Sunday afternoon, while my mother was busy with community meetings and my sister Rebecca was at her piano lessons, Grammy would pull out her worn recipe cards and teach me the secrets that couldn't be written down. Baking isn't just about measurements, Morgan, she'd say, guiding my small hands as I kneaded dough. It's about feeling. The dough will tell you when it's ready if you listen. Those afternoons in Grammy's flour-dusted kitchen were where I felt most myself. While my mother Linda pushed me toward practical pursuits and my sister excelled at everything academic, I found my voice in creating things that made people smile. The look on someone's face when they bit into something I'd made, that moment of pure joy, was addictive. College was a compromise. I agreed to major in business administration to appease my mother, but I baked constantly in my tiny dorm kitchen. My roommates never complained about being test subjects. By sophomore year, I was selling my cookies to local coffee shops to help with tuition. Mom called it a nice hobby in that dismissive tone that made my stomach knot up. After graduation, I took the sensible route, accepting a position at Magnolia Bakery Corporation, a soul-crushing experience that had nothing to do with actual baking. I spent 3 years in a gray cubicle analyzing cost reports for ingredients I never got to touch. Each morning I'd stop at a real bakery just to inhale deeply before heading into my fluorescent-lit prison. "You've got benefits and stability," my mother would remind me during our weekly calls. "Your sister just made partner at her law firm, 34 and already so established." Rebecca's achievements were always the measuring stick against which I fell short. Harvard Law, prestigious clerkship, marriage to an equally successful attorney, 2 perfectly behaved children, and a house in the right neighborhood. My sister followed our mother's blueprint to the letter. My father, Thomas, was different, quieter, more resigned to Mom's domineering presence. He'd sneak me encouraging winks when Mom wasn't looking and always requested my cookies at family gatherings, though he never openly contradicted her dismissal of my passion. "Your cookies are better than anything in those fancy shops," he'd whisper, but never when Mom could hear. The turning point came after another mind-numbing corporate meeting. I went home and baked 4 different cake variations until 3 a.m. the next day. I started an Instagram account showcasing my creations. Within 6 months, I was taking orders every weekend for custom cakes and pastries. I'd work my corporate job Monday through Friday, then spend Friday night to Sunday creating edible masterpieces in my apartment kitchen. For 2 years, I lived this double life, banking every cent I could toward my real dream, sugar and spice. My own bakery where creativity wouldn't be sacrificed for corporate profit margins. When I mentioned my growing savings to my mother during Thanksgiving dinner, the reaction was swift. "A bakery, Morgan, don't be ridiculous. Do you know the failure rate for small restaurants? Nearly 60% in the first year. Your sister just put money down on a vacation home, and you want to throw away your security on some fantasy." Rebecca had the grace to look uncomfortable but still added, "It is risky, Morg. Maybe keep it as a side gig." Only my father asked to see my business plan, quietly slipping me a book on small business ownership on my way out. It wasn't much, but it was something. Then James came into my life. He ordered a birthday cake for his mother, lemon with raspberry filling, and asked me out when he came to pick it up. By our 3rd date, I'd told him everything about my dream. Unlike everyone else, he didn't immediately list reasons why it would fail. "When are you going to do it?" he asked instead, as if it were a foregone conclusion that I would succeed. 6 months into our relationship, he was helping me scout locations on weekends. A year later, we were engaged, and I'd saved almost enough for a modest down payment on a commercial lease. The perfect spot appeared like fate, a former bookshop with big windows and weathered wooden floors in a neighborhood just beginning to attract young professionals. The rent was at the upper limit of what I could afford, but the foot traffic and charming atmosphere were ideal. "You'll never find a better location," the realtor said, sensing my hesitation. "There's already interest from a phone repair chain." That night, I called my parents to tell them I was signing a lease. Mom immediately launched into concerns about economic downturns and my lack of restaurant experience. "I'm not asking for your permission or money," I finally interrupted. "I'm telling you because this is happening." The silence that followed was deafening. Then my father cleared his throat. "When can we see the place?" he asked. It wasn't enthusiastic support, but coming from my father, it felt revolutionary. Quitting my corporate job felt like jumping off a cliff. My supervisor seemed genuinely confused that anyone would leave such a promising position for something as trivial as happiness. "You'll always have a place here if things don't work out," she said, which felt more like a prediction than a kindness. My mother's reaction was less restrained. "This is impulsive and irresponsible. You're throwing away years of building a career for what? To sell cupcakes? I raised you to be smarter than this, Morgan." The bank loan process was its own special form of humiliation. Despite my business degree, savings, and detailed business plan, the first 3 banks rejected my application. The 4th finally approved a loan at a punishing interest rate, the loan officer making it clear that food service businesses are high-risk investments. The day I got the keys to my empty shop was simultaneously the most exhilarating and terrifying day of my life. James brought champagne and we sat on the dusty floor toasting to sugar and spice. "It's really happening," I kept saying, unable to fully believe it. Reality quickly set in when the contractor discovered that the charming old building needed complete electrical rewiring to support commercial ovens. Then came the plumbing issues, followed by permit delays when the city inspector found asbestos in a back storage area. "These old buildings always have surprises," the contractor said with a shrug that cost me another $5,000 and pushed the timeline back 3 weeks. Each setback meant more money flowing out with nothing coming in. I started having panic attacks in the middle of the night, James holding me as I gasped about interest payments and dwindling savings. "We can postpone the wedding," he suggested one particularly bad night. "No," I insisted. "I'm not letting this affect us. I'll figure it out." I took out a second loan against my car and stopped taking a day off. While the contractors worked, I developed recipes, designed menus, created a website, and learned about inventory management systems. I slept maybe 4 hours a night, sustained by determination and French press coffee. The one joy in this chaotic period was designing the bakery itself. I wanted a space that honored Grammy Rose's influence while feeling contemporary. We painted the walls a warm cream color and installed open shelving made from reclaimed wood. The centerpiece of the space became a vintage display case I found at an estate sale and restored myself over 3 painful weekends. Grammy's rolling pin would have a special place on the wall above the register, along with a framed photo of us baking together when I was 8. The rest of the decor balanced rustic charm with Instagram-worthy aesthetics, pendant lights casting a golden glow, strategically placed mirrors to make the space feel larger, and a signature wall painted robin's egg blue for customer photos. Hiring staff was another challenge I hadn't fully anticipated. After several disappointing interviews, I found Zoe, a culinary school graduate with pink-tipped hair and infectious enthusiasm. Her trial batch of croissants was the best I'd ever tasted outside of Paris. "I'm so sick of pretentious chef Bros taking credit for my work," she said bluntly. "I want to learn from a woman who owns her business." Jake came next, a former barista with a business degree who wanted to learn the baking side. He handled the financial projections I was too exhausted to look at and gently suggested menu adjustments that would increase profit margins without sacrificing quality. "You need 6 hours of sleep minimum," he lectured after finding me asleep on a flour sack. "Science says sleep deprivation is equivalent to being drunk, and I don't want a drunk boss handling the pastry knife." 2 weeks before opening, I was working 18-hour days. We were testing final recipes, training on the point-of-sale system, and finalizing every detail from napkin choices to bathroom soap dispensers. The stress was showing. My skin was breaking out. I'd lost weight I couldn't afford to lose, and I'd snapped at James twice over nothing. The night I addressed the grand opening invitations, my hand shook as I wrote my parents' names. Despite everything, a part of me still desperately wanted them to see what I'd created, to understand that this wasn't just a hobby or rebellion but my life's purpose. "They probably won't even come," I told James as I licked the envelope. "They'll come," he assured me. "And they'll be proud." How could they not be? But the knot in my stomach said otherwise. Every criticism my mother had ever made about my impracticality echoed in my mind as I tried to sleep that night. What if she was right? What if this was all a terrible mistake? I didn't tell James about the anxiety attack I had in the bathroom at 3 a.m., sitting on the cold tile floor trying to remember how to breathe. This was my dream. I couldn't let anyone, even my own mother, take that away from me. The day before the grand opening, time seemed to both crawl and fly by. Zoe, Jake, and I had been at the bakery since 4 a.m., prepping duffs that needed to rest overnight and finalizing display arrangements. The cases were empty but spotlessly clean, waiting for tomorrow's bounty. The scent of vanilla and butter hung in the air. a promise of what was to come. I think we need more of the lavender shortbread, I said, checking our prep list for the 10th time. It's unexpected, and people will want something unique to post about. Already ahead of you, Jake replied, pointing to the perfectly portioned dough rounds waiting for their turn in the oven. And I've got extra dried lavender if we need to make more. My phone buzzed with a text, and my heart leapt to my throat when I saw it was from Rebecca. My sister rarely contacted me directly, usually filtering everything through our mother. The kids are excited about trying Aunt Morgan's cookies tomorrow. Nathan has been talking about it all week. What time should we arrive? Will is coming too. I stared at the screen, momentarily paralyzed. Rebecca was bringing her whole family, her husband Will, 7-year-old Nathan, and 5-year-old Emma. This wasn't just a courtesy appearance, this seemed like actual support. Before I could respond, another text arrived, this one from my mother. Your father and I will attend your opening tomorrow. 2 p.m. seems very inconvenient for working people, but we've adjusted our schedules. Please make sure there are some plain options without all those fancy additions. Not everyone likes lavender in their cookies. The familiar mixture of hope and dread filled my chest. Mom was coming, but she couldn't resist the criticism, even before tasting anything. The mention of my working people unfriendly opening time was a not-so-subtle dig at my career choice. I texted Rebecca back first, suggesting they come at 2:30 to avoid the initial rush, then sent my mother a brief acknowledgement. As I set my phone down, it rang, my father's name lighting up the screen. "Hey, Dad," I answered, bracing myself. "Morgan." His voice had that familiar gruffness that hid any emotion. "Just wanted to say good luck tomorrow. Your mother's driving me crazy with concerns about parking, but we'll be there." "Thanks, Dad, that means a lot." A pause, then, "I'm proud of you, kiddo. Not many people have the guts to chase their dream like this." My eyes immediately welled up. In 32 years, I could count on one hand the number of times my father had directly expressed pride in me. "I'm nervous," I admitted, something I wouldn't have said to anyone else in my family. "You should be. Means you care about doing it right." Another pause. "Your grandmother would have loved this place. She always said you had the touch." By the time I hung up, tears were streaming down my face. Zoe tactfully busied herself with inventory, giving me a moment to compose myself. The emotional roller coaster continued when a delivery arrived, a small, carefully wrapped package. Inside was Grammy Rose's handwritten recipe book, its pages yellow with age and splattered with evidence of years of use. A note from my Uncle Michael explained that he'd found it while clearing out her house and thought I should have it for the bakery. The inscription on the first page undid me completely. "For Morgan, who will someday make people happier than I ever could with these recipes. Your hands were made for creating joy. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. All my love, Grammy." She knew, I whispered, running my fingers over her familiar handwriting. She always knew this would happen. The moment of peace was short-lived. James arrived with lunch and news that sent my anxiety spiraling again. "My parents want to come tomorrow too," he announced. "They're so excited." "You invited them?" I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. "We agreed to keep it small for the opening. My family is stressful enough without adding more people to manage. They're going to be your family too." James countered, clearly hurt. "They want to support us. This isn't about us. It's about my bakery, my dream. I need to focus on making this perfect without worrying about entertaining your parents too." The argument escalated quickly, fueled by exhaustion and pre-opening nerves. James finally left to get some air, while I retreated to the kitchen, furiously piping decorations onto test cookies that would never be sold. Zoe approached cautiously. "Boss, we need to talk about the display configuration again. I think we're overcrowding the morning pastry section." This sent me into another spiral of second-guessing every decision. Should the croissants be featured prominently, or should we lead with the signature cookies? Were the prices too high for the neighborhood, too low to be sustainable? What if no one comes? I finally voiced my deepest fear, sitting on a flour sack surrounded by cooling racks of test batches. "People will come," Jake said firmly. "The food blogger from Bite of the City already confirmed, and she has 20,000 followers. Plus your Instagram following is solid. They'll show up. And they'll come back," Zoe added, "because everything we're making is incredible." The rest of the day passed in a blur of final preparations. James returned with an apology coffee and helped set up the Instagrammable photo wall, a display of vintage baking utensils against the robin's egg blue wall, with the sugar and spice logo in elegant script. "Your mom will probably hate this," he said, arranging copper measuring cups in an artful cascade. "Too trendy." "Probably," I agreed, but I loved it. By midnight, we had prepped everything possible. The refrigerators were stocked with fillings, creams, and toppings. Duffs were resting, ready to be baked fresh at dawn. The coffee station was set up, beans measured and ready to grind. "Get some sleep," I told Zoe and Jake. "I need you sharp at 5 a.m. After they left, I stood alone in my bakery, taking it all in. The warm lighting glinted off the display cases. Grammy's rolling pin hung proudly on the wall. Tomorrow, these empty shelves would be filled with my creations. People would come or they wouldn't. My family would support me or they wouldn't. For the first time in weeks, a strange calm settled over me. Whatever happened tomorrow, I had built this. No one could take that away. I locked up, running my fingers over the sugar and spice sign on the door. Tomorrow would change everything, for better or worse. Opening day dawned crisp and clear, perfect bakery weather. I'd slept maybe 3 hours before my alarm jolted me awake at 4 a.m. By 4:30 I was unlocking the bakery, the street still dark and quiet around me. Inside, everything waited just as we'd left it. Like a theater set before the actors arrive, I turned on the ovens and breathed in the silence. For just a moment, I allowed myself to feel the magnitude of what was happening. This was my bakery, mine. Zoe arrived at 4:55, bleary-eyed but smiling, with Jake just minutes behind her. We worked in synchronized harmony, each focusing on our assigned tasks. Pastries went into the ovens in carefully timed waves. The espresso machine hummed to life. Display cases gradually filled with golden croissants, jewel-tone fruit tarts, and cookies in a dozen varieties. "They were perfect," Jake said, stepping back to admire our work at 6:45, 15 minutes before opening. Through the windows I could see something that made my heart skip a line. Not just 1 or 2 curious locals, but at least 15 people were already waiting on the sidewalk. "Holy shit," Zoe whispered, coming to stand beside me. "You've got a fan club." At precisely 7 a.m. I unlocked the door, my hands trembling slightly as I turned the sign to open. "Welcome to Sugar and Spice." I greeted the first customer, a middle-aged woman in a running outfit. "I've been following your Instagram for months," she gushed. "I can't believe you're finally open. I need 2 almond croissants and one of those maple bacon things that looked amazing online." The morning rush exceeded every projection. By 9 a.m., half our inventory was gone, and Jake was frantically calculating how much additional dough we could prepare for the afternoon. The credit card machine beeped steadily, each transaction a small victory. At 10:30, the local Small Business Association arrived with a giant ribbon and oversized scissors for an impromptu ribbon-cutting ceremony. The president made a brief speech about revitalization and entrepreneurship while Zoe scrambled to restock the rapidly emptying maple bacon croissant tray. "Say cheese," called a photographer from the neighborhood paper, and suddenly I was posing with the giant scissors, a flour smudge on my cheek and disbelief in my eyes. Customers filled every table, the hum of conversation and the occasional moan of pleasure over a particularly good bite creating the exact atmosphere I'd dreamed of. My signature cardamom snickerdoodle sold out within 2 hours. The lavender shortbread, which my mother had preemptively criticized, was a close second. Then, like an apparition, my father appeared at the counter. He wore a button-down shirt that I recognized as his special occasions attire, and his hair was freshly trimmed. "Looks like you've got a hit on your hands," he said, his eyes taking in the busy shop. "Dad, you're early. I checked the time, just past noon. Mom's not with you. She'll be along later." He cleared his throat, thought I'd come see the place without all the commentary. I came around the counter to give him a quick hug, which he returned awkwardly but sincerely. "Give me the tour?" he asked. I showed him everything: the kitchen with its commercial ovens, the custom display cases, the cozy seating area. I explained my vision for seasonal menu rotations and community baking classes. He asked thoughtful questions about kitchen workflow and vendor relationships. It was possibly the longest conversation we'd ever had without my mother's mediating presence. "You really thought of everything," he said finally, genuine admiration in his voice. I hesitated. "Do you think Mom will see that?" His expression told me everything I needed to know. "Your mother sees what she wants to see. Morgan always has." Before I could respond, James arrived with a massive bouquet of sunflowers, my favorites. He's taken the morning off to handle some last-minute details at home but would work the register for the afternoon rush. "It's incredible in here," he said, kissing me quickly. "The line goes around the corner." My father shook James's hand with unusual warmth. They'd always been polite but distant with each other, united mainly by their shared experience of navigating the Reynolds women's complicated dynamics. James took over the register while I circulated through the bakery, talking with customers and soaking in their reactions. The food blogger from Bite of the City was in a corner, meticulously photographing a slice of my orange cardamom cake from multiple angles. "This is absolutely stunning," she said when she noticed me watching. "The flavor profile is so unique but approachable. I'm already drafting my review." The compliment sent a wave of pride through me. This was exactly what I'd wanted: not just to sell baked goods, but to create experiences, to make something special that people couldn't get elsewhere. As the afternoon crowd thinned slightly, I found myself watching the door with increasing anxiety. It was nearly 2 p.m. when my mother and sister would arrive. Despite the morning's success, I realized I still craved their approval. Some childhood patterns never fully disappear. At 2:15, the door opened, and there they were, my mother in her signature pearls and tailored blazer, Rebecca in a similar but younger version of the same polished aesthetic. Behind them came Will, Rebecca's husband, herding Nathan and Emma, both looking uncharacteristically tidy. For one perfect moment, seeing my family framed in the doorway of my bakery felt like a victory. I had done this. I had created something real and successful, and now they would have to acknowledge it. Morgan, my mother said, air kissing both my cheeks. Well, this is certainly busy. I'm surprised so many people can take time off work in the middle of a Tuesday. And just like that, the bubble of perfection popped. The initial awkwardness of my family's arrival quickly escalated as my mother began a methodical assessment of the bakery, her expression suggesting she was cataloging flaws for later discussion. Rebecca made a show of admiring the decor, but her compliments had the hollow ring of someone trying to find something positive to say at a child's amateur art show. The blue wall is very bold, she offered, glancing at my mother for approval. Very Instagram-friendly, I suppose. That's the point, I explained, trying to keep my voice light. People take photos, tag us, free advertising. Clever, Rebecca nodded, in the same tone she used when her son made a precocious observation. Will had already retreated to a corner, phone pressed to his ear, engaged in what sounded like a work call he couldn't possibly postpone for his sister-in-law's bakery opening. Nathan and Emma, however, were pressed against the display case, eyes wide at the rainbow of treats. Can we get cookies, Mom, please? Nathan begged. Rebecca hesitated. Maybe one small one. We have your nutrition consultation tomorrow, remember? Oh, let them have cookies, my father interjected unexpectedly. It's a special occasion. My mother's eyebrows rose nearly to her hairline at this rebellion. Thomas, they have dietary restrictions. Rebecca is just being a responsible parent. She turned to me. Do you have anything without refined sugar? These all look very sweet. They're desserts, Mom, I said, feeling the first threads of real tension coiling in my stomach. They're supposed to be sweet. Well, some of us prefer sophisticated flavors that don't assault the palate, she sniffed, examining a perfectly caramelized apple tart with suspicion. James appeared at my side, sensing the mounting tension. Mrs. Reynolds, it's great to see you. Could I get you a coffee? We're using a fantastic local roaster. No thank you, James. I avoid caffeine after noon. She moved to inspect the prices listed on our menu board. My goodness, $7 for a croissant. Is it made with gold leaf? The comment was just loud enough for nearby customers to hear. I felt heat rising to my face. It's made with imported French butter and takes 3 days to prepare properly, I explained, keeping my voice low. We're actually on the lower end price-wise compared to other artisanal bakeries. $7 would buy a dozen croissants at the supermarket, my mother continued, clearly unimpressed. Then by all means shop at the supermarket, I snapped, immediately regretting my tone but unable to swallow another criticism. Rebecca stepped between us, always the peacemaker. Everything looks lovely, Morgan, very ambitious. The way she said ambitious made it sound like a flaw rather than a compliment. Which ones can the children try? She asked, skillfully changing the subject. I directed my niece and nephew to the simpler cookies, watching their delight as they made their selections. For a brief moment, seeing their uncomplicated joy at something I had created cut through the tension. My father had wandered to examine Grammy's rolling pin display, a small smile playing on his lips as he recognized the kitchen tool from his own childhood home. It was the one genuine reaction I'd seen from my family so far. The momentary peace shattered when my mother approached a couple seated near the window, who had been happily sharing a slice of my signature cardamom pear cake. Is this your first time here? She asked them with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The couple nodded, looking confused. I'm Linda Reynolds, Morgan's mother, she informed them, as if bestowing a great honor. I'm just a bit worried about the portion sizes for these prices. Did you find it satisfying? Mom, I hissed, mortified. What? I'm conducting market research for you, she replied with wide-eyed innocence. Customer feedback is valuable. The cake is amazing, actually, the woman said, looking uncomfortable. We're definitely coming back. How nice, my mother said with a tight smile. Then, in a stage whisper to the couple, I'm just concerned about her future, you know. The failure rate for new restaurants is astronomical, and she left a perfectly good corporate position to do this. That was at the final straw. The anxiety, exhaustion, and stress of the past months crystallized into a white-hot rage that I couldn't contain. I spun around to grab anything to keep my hands busy before I said something unforgivable. In my blind anger, I knocked into the special display of wedding cake samples I'd spent hours arranging that morning. The tower of delicate porcelain plates holding the precious samples wobbled once, twice, and then crashed to the floor in a spectacular explosion of cake, frosting, and broken china. The bakery fell silent. Every eye turned to the disaster and then to me, standing frozen among the ruins of my carefully crafted display. Tears burned behind my eyes as I stared at the mess, a perfect metaphor for what my mother had just done to my perfect day. Morgan James started reaching for me. "Don't," I snapped, pulling away from him. The last thing I needed was comfort that would break the tenuous hold I had on my emotions. So he materialized with a broom and dustpan, her face a careful mask of professional detachment. "I've got this, boss," she murmured. "I'll help," Rebecca offered, stepping forward in her immaculate pencil skirt and designer heels. "You've helped enough," I said, my voice tight. "All of you have." I retreated to the kitchen, the one place that had always been my sanctuary. Behind me I could hear my mother's voice. "She's always been so emotional. That's why I worried about her in a high-stress business." In the kitchen I gripped the edge of the stainless steel prep table, trying to steady my breathing. The door swung open and I whirled around, ready to tell James I needed space. But it was Rebecca who stood there, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "That was awful out there," she said. "Mom was out of line." "Really, you think?" The sarcasm dripped from my voice. "Thank you for that astute observation, counselor." Rebecca flinched but pressed on. "I'm trying to help Morgan." "By what? Standing silently while Mom undermines everything I've worked for? Or by making those backhanded compliments about how ambitious my little bakery is? That's not fair. I've always supported you." "No," I corrected her, years of resentment bubbling up. "You've always tolerated me. There's a difference. You and Mom are a unit and Dad and I are the outsiders. That's how it's always been." "That's ridiculous," Rebecca protested, but her eyes slid away from mine, unable to fully deny the truth. "Is it? When have you ever stood up to her? When have you ever said, 'Hey Mom, stop treating Morgan like she's a disappointment because she didn't follow your life plan'?" Before Rebecca could respond, the kitchen door swung open again. This time it was my father, looking more determined than I'd seen him in years. "Your mother and I are leaving," he announced. "I've told her she owes you an apology," but he shrugged, the gesture conveying a lifetime of failed attempts to moderate my mother's behavior. "It's fine," I said automatically, the peacekeeper in me taking over despite my anger. "It doesn't matter." "It does matter," my father said with surprising firmness. "This place, what you've built here, it matters, Morgan. I'm proud of you, even if your mother can't see past her own expectations." The simple declaration, "I'm proud of you," broke something in me. A sob escaped before I could stop it. Rebecca looked stricken. "Morgan, Whatever she planned to say was interrupted by James pushing through the door. "The food blogger just posted her review," he announced, waving his phone. "Morgan, it's incredible. 5 stars. She's calling Sugar Spice a revelation and the most exciting new bakery in the city. It's already got hundreds of likes." The emotional whiplash was almost too much to process. In the front of the bakery, I could hear the bell above the door jingling as my mother departed, while simultaneously my phone began buzzing with notifications from the viral review. Through the kitchen's round window I could see customers still enjoying my creations, completely unaware of the family drama unfolding behind the scenes. The contrast was surreal: public success alongside private turmoil. "I should go," Rebecca said quietly. "The kids are probably driving Will crazy out there." "Yeah," I agreed, suddenly exhausted. "You should go." As Rebecca reached the door I found myself calling after her. "Beck, take some cookies for the kids, the chocolate chunk ones, they're Nathan's favorite." A small olive branch, but it was all I could manage. After she left, my father awkwardly patted my shoulder, his version of emotional support, and followed her out. I was left standing in my kitchen, surrounded by the ruins of what should have been a perfect day, wondering if family approval was a price I was willing to pay for my dream. After my family left, I sat on a flour sack in the kitchen staring at nothing. The surge of emotions, anger, hurt, vindication, pride, left me hollow. James tried to comfort me, but his reassurances that they'll come around only irritated me further. "You don't understand," I told him. "Your family celebrates your choices. They don't make you feel like you're fundamentally disappointing them by existing." "You're right," he admitted. "I don't understand, but I'm trying to." His honest acknowledgement deflated my anger. "I know, I'm sorry." "Don't apologize," he said firmly. "Not today, not for any of this." He left to manage the front, giving me space to collect myself. A few minutes later, Zoe appeared with a cup of tea and sat beside me on another flour sack. "Family, huh?" she said, not really a question. "Yeah. My mom told me I was wasting my potential at culinary school. She said if I was smart enough for a full scholarship, I should be a doctor or lawyer, not just a cook." I looked at her with new understanding. "How do you deal with it?" She shrugged. "Some days better than others, but I figured out something important. Her disapproval hurts, but giving up on my passion would hurt more." The simple truth of it resonated deeply. "When did you get so wise?" "Therapy," she grinned. "Lots and lots of therapy." We shared a laugh that felt like releasing a breath I'd been holding all day. "So," Zoe said, standing up, "we've got a decision to make. It's barely 3 p.m. Do we close early and call today a wash, or do we push through?" The question brought me back to the immediate reality. There were still customers out front. The viral review was bringing in new ones. This was still the grand opening of my bakery. "We push through," I decided, standing up, "but first, I need to fix my makeup and apologize to everyone for the scene." "Already handled," Zoe assured me. "Jake told everyone it was a minor kitchen accident. Most people were too busy enjoying their pastries to even notice." As I washed my face in the small employee bathroom, my phone buzzed with another notification. The food blogger had tagged Sugar Spice in an Instagram story that was getting massive engagement. "This is not a drill, people," the caption read beneath a photo of our maple bacon croissants. "Drop whatever you're doing and get to Sugar Spice before they sell out. Best opening day discovery ever." Taking a deep breath, I squared my shoulders and pushed through the swinging door back into the main bakery. To my surprise, there were more customers than when I had fled to the kitchen. The line now extended to the door. My father still sat at a small corner table nursing a cup of coffee. When our eyes met, he gave me a small nod that contained a lifetime of unspoken support. It wasn't enough to heal everything, but it was something real to hold on to. James was efficiently running the register while Jake handled the espresso orders. They'd fallen into a rhythm that kept the line moving despite the rush. Several customers smiled at me as I emerged, a few offering compliments on specific items they'd tried. An elderly woman stopped me as I passed her table. "Are you the baker?" she asked, her eyes bright behind cat-eye glasses. "Yes, I'm Morgan. Is everything okay with your order?" "More than okay, dear. The cinnamon roll takes me back to my grandmother's kitchen." She patted my hand. "I saw what happened earlier with your mother." I felt my face flush with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry about that." "Don't you apologize," she said firmly. 50 years ago I opened a bookshop when women were supposed to be home raising babies. My family thought I was crazy, said I'd fail within a month." She gestured around the bakery. "Families don't always understand our dreams. But that doesn't make them any less worth pursuing." Her words were exactly what I needed to hear. "Thank you for telling me that." "You've created something special here," she continued. "I recognize that look in your eyes. It's the same one I had when I unlocked my shop for the first time. Don't let anyone dim that light, dear, not even family." As I moved away from her table, a new determination filled me. This was my bakery, my dream. I'd fought too hard to let one difficult afternoon derail everything. I approached the remaining customers who had witnessed the earlier scene. "I want to apologize for the disruption earlier," I said. "To make it up to you, we're offering complimentary family drama recovery cookies to everyone." The unexpected joke broke the tension, earning laughter and appreciative murmurs. Jake quickly arranged a tray of our chocolate chunk cookies, simple but perfect, and I personally distributed them to each table. By the time we reached closing at 6 p.m., we had sold out of nearly everything. The display cases that had been so carefully stocked that morning were now almost empty. The day's sales had exceeded our projections by almost 40s, even with the free cookie. As Jake counted the register and Zoe wiped down the last tables, James pulled me outside for a moment of quiet. "Look," he said, pointing down the block where a line had formed that morning. "You did that. You created something people literally lined up for." I leaned against him, exhaustion and pride competing for dominance. "We did it." "No," he corrected gently. "You did it. This is your vision, your talent. The rest of us are just lucky to be part of it." After Zoe and Jake left, James and I sat at one of the tables with glasses of champagne he's thoughtfully brought from home. "We need to talk about something," he said, his expression serious. My stomach clenched, anticipating criticism about how I'd handled my family. Instead, he said, "I've been thinking about our wedding." "I know we need to postpone," I said quickly. "The bakery will take all my time for at least the first year." "No," he interrupted, "I think we should have it here." "Here at the bakery?" A small ceremony, just people who truly support us. We could close early on a Sunday, transform the space. He gestured around the room. This place represents everything I love about you, your passion, your creativity, your willingness to take risks. I can't imagine a more perfect place to start our marriage. The thoughtfulness of the suggestion brought fresh tears to my eyes, happy ones this time. That sounds perfect. As we locked up that night, my father called. Just checking you're okay, he said, the concern in his voice genuine. I'm okay, Dad. Better than okay, actually. Your mother, he hesitated. She has her own way of showing concern. She worries about security, stability. I know, I sighed, but this is my path, not hers. I've tried to talk to her, he continued. Made her see how successful today was. She may not show it, but she does care, Morgan. In her way, I acknowledged. In her way, he agreed. For what it's worth, I think what you've created is remarkable. Your grandmother would be bursting with pride. After we hung up, I stood in the darkened bakery, letting the events of the day settle around me. My phone pinged with a notification. Rebecca had posted a picture of Nathan and Emma enjoying their cookies from Sugar Spice, with a caption that read, "So proud of my talented sister Morgan Reynolds for following her dreams. Best cookies in the city, family talent." It was a small gesture, but from Rebecca, it felt significant, a public acknowledgement of my accomplishment, independent of our mother's opinion. As I finally headed home, exhausted but satisfied, I realized something important. The day hadn't gone as planned, but perhaps it had gone exactly as needed. The dream wasn't just about opening a perfect bakery, it was about becoming the person I was meant to be, regardless of whether that aligned with others' expectations. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for tonight I had proven something essential, not just to my family but to myself. 1 month after the tumultuous grand opening, Sugar Spice had settled into a rhythm that still sometimes felt like a dream. Each morning, I unlocked the doors to find a small line of regulars waiting, the lawyer from the building across the street who couldn't start her day without our espresso, the freelance writer who claimed the corner table 3 days a week, the retired teacher who tried a different pastry each visit. The local newspaper had run a feature on us. Hometown baker makes good, Sugar Spice sweetens downtown. The article praised the quality of our offerings and highlighted the personal touch that set us apart from chain bakeries. They'd used a photo of me in front of the shop, flour dusting my apron, Grammy's rolling pin visible on the wall behind me. I'd hired 2 more part-time employees to handle the unexpected volume, and James had reduced his consulting hours to help manage the business side. We were not just surviving but thriving, each day's receipts confirming what my heart already knew: this bakery was where I belonged. My mother hadn't returned since opening day, but I'd received a stiff congratulations card 2 weeks after the feature ran. "The bakery looks lovely in the newspaper," she'd written in her perfect penmanship. "Your father says the financials are promising. Well done." No apology, but from Linda Reynolds, acknowledgement was its own form of concession. The bell above the door chimed, pulling me from my thoughts. I looked up to see Rebecca standing uncertainly in the entrance, alone, no children, no husband, no mother. "Hey," she said, approaching the counter. "Do you have a minute?" It was just past the morning rush, the lull before lunch customers would arrive. Sure, I nodded, gesturing to a table in the corner. "Coffee?" "Please." We sat across from each other, steam rising from our mugs, the awkwardness of opening day still lingering between us. "The place looks great," Rebecca offered, even busier than before. "Thanks, it's been good." I stirred my coffee needlessly. "How are the kids?" "Good. Nathan won't stop talking about your cookies. He tells everyone his aunt is a famous baker." The thought of my serious little nephew bragging about me brought an unexpected smile. "That's sweet." Rebecca twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit from childhood. "I owe you an apology," she said finally, "for opening day, for a lot of things, really." I waited, giving her space to continue. "I've never been brave like you," she admitted. "I've always just done what was expected, what Mom wanted." She glanced around the bakery. "What you've built here, it took real courage. I envy that." The confession stunned me. Rebecca, who had always seemed so confident in her choices, envious of me? "I thought you loved being a lawyer," I said. "I'm good at it," she shrugged. "That's not the same thing. I don't have a passion like you do." She took a sip of coffee. "Will and I have been in counseling. Turns out I've been putting the same pressure on him and the kids that Mom put on us." The vulnerability in her admission created an opening I hadn't realized I'd been waiting for. "I always thought you and Mom were a united front," I confessed, the successful ones looking down on the family disappointment. Rebecca winced. "I'm sorry we made you feel that way. I think," she hesitated, "I think I allied with Mom because it was easier than risking her disapproval. I saw how she treated you, and I was afraid to be on the receiving end of that. The realization that my sister had been operating from fear rather than superiority shifted something fundamental in how I saw our relationship. We'd both been damaged by our mother's expectations, just in different ways. "I'd like us to try again," Rebecca said cautiously, "to be real sisters, not just people who see each other at holidays." "I'd like that too," I said, meaning it. Our conversation was interrupted by the arrival of my father, who'd taken to stopping by most mornings for coffee and a pastry, a small ritual that was gradually rebuilding our relationship. His eyebrows rose in surprise at seeing Rebecca. "Am I interrupting?" he asked. "Not at all," Rebecca said, making room at the table. "I was just telling Morgan I want to sign the kids up for her children's baking class." I hadn't mentioned any children's baking class, but the idea took root immediately. "Sunday afternoons," I said, playing along. "We make cookies shaped like animals." My father's eyes crinkled with amusement, sensing the tentative peace being brokered. "Your mother might actually approve of that," he observed. "Educational activity for the grandchildren." "She might even come to observe," Rebecca suggested cautiously. "She might," I agreed, though we all knew it would take more than cookies to bridge the gap with my mother. But for the first time, that gap felt like something that could potentially be crossed rather than an unbridgeable chasm. As promised, James and I planned a small wedding at the bakery, scheduled for a Sunday evening in spring. The guest list was intentionally limited, just those who had truly supported us in the dream of sugar spice. My father would walk me down an aisle formed between the bakery tables. So he was designing a cake that incorporated elements of Grammy's recipe. "Should we invite your mother?" James had asked carefully when we finalized the list. "Yes," I decided after consideration. "She may not come, but the invitation should be sent." It was a boundary and an olive branch in equal measure, acknowledging her importance in my life while refusing to center my special day around her approval. The bakery continued to evolve in ways I hadn't anticipated. After a customer mentioned that her grandmother had owned a local bakery in the 1950s, I created a family recipe wall where people could submit their cherished recipes along with the stories behind them. The wall became a community focal point, each card representing a family's history and traditions. My own contributions included recipes from Grammy Rose's book, her handwriting preserved under glass like the precious artifacts they were, and noticed my father lingering by the display on his visits, sometimes touching the frame containing her cinnamon roll recipe as if connecting to a memory. Some days were still hard. Running a successful bakery meant constant adaptation, exhausting hours, and the weight of responsibility for my employees' livelihoods. There were moments of doubt, especially when supplies costs rose or equipment broke down, when I wondered if my mother's practical concerns had merit. But then a customer would tell me how our cookies reminded them of childhood, or Zoe would perfect a new recipe that made us all cheer in the kitchen, or James would show me the consistently positive reviews online, and I'd remember why I'd chosen this path. The most unexpected healing came 6 weeks after opening day, when I arrived at the bakery to find my mother waiting outside before dawn, looking uncomfortable but determined. "I've been thinking," she said without preamble, "that I should understand what you do here. Your father says you start at 4 a.m. every day. I'd like to observe your process." It wasn't an apology or even a clear endorsement, but from Linda Reynolds, it was a monumental concession and acknowledgement that my work deserved to be taken seriously. "It's messy," I warned her, "and hot, and there's a lot of heavy lifting." "I raised 2 daughters while making partner at my firm," she reminded me. "I can handle a little flour." That morning my mother watched silently as I mixed stuffs and prepared fillings. She asked precise, thoughtful questions about ingredients and techniques. She nodded with approval at my detailed inventory system. When the first batch of croissants emerged golden and flaky from the oven, I offered her one, still warm. "This is what it's all about," I told her as she took a bite. "This moment right here, creating something that brings joy." She chewed thoughtfully, her expression unreadable. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost missed it, "It's exceptional, Morgan, truly." It wasn't forgiveness or a complete reconciliation. The patterns of our relationship were too deeply ingrained to change in a single morning. But it was a beginning, a small delicate hope, as fragile and promising as pastry dough before it rises. As I lock up the bakery each night, surrounded by the lingering scent of vanilla and possibility, I often think about the journey that brought me here. The bakery wasn't just about proving my family wrong, but about proving myself right. Sometimes the sweetest victory isn't winning someone's approval, it's realizing you no longer need it. Grammy knew that all along. Her recipes weren't just instructions for baking, they were lessons in living authentically. The most important ingredient in any recipe is believing in yourself. Even when no one else does, the family you choose can be as important as the one you're born into. And my bakery has given me both. If you've ever followed your heart despite the doubts of those around you, I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest paths led to the most beautiful destinations, and if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need encouragement to pursue their own dream. Life is too short not to do what brings you joy, whether that's baking cookies, starting a business, or simply being true to yourself. Thank you for being part of my journey.